You ever think about those guys who had one big song that was an absolute smash that made the entire year, and then they just vanished? Whatever happened to those guys? Well, those guys usually are classified as a one-hit wonder. This term usually refers to people who peaked with one song that was extremely popular, and then they never were relevant again. And while this term may seem to have a negative meaning, it's not really that bad of a thing. Most people are lucky to even have any relevant song, so if you have one popular song, and if you're right with your money, you can be set up for life. However, for a lot of musicians, being a one-hit wonder was the worst thing to ever happen to them. There's too many cases of musicians who peaked too quickly with one viral song and then they turned to the worst. So today, we're going to be looking at the dark side of being a one-hit wonder, so let's cut the bullshit and get right into it. In 2016, rapper Desiigner was the definition of being up next. Initially just a struggling artist trying to make it in life, his entire life changed in 1 year. He dropped the song Panda in December 2015, but at first it didn't really take off. It only gained popularity after Kanye West noticed it and he used it for his album The Life of Pablo. It was heavily sampled on the song Farther Stretch My Hands Part 2. Desiigner was even featured on the album on a different song called Freestyle 4. The popularity of this album and this track made the original song Panda take off like wildfire. Now, a lot of people got it mixed up for Future at first because if you listen to this song with no context, you would actually think it's Future, not a different guy. But once you start to get more in depth, you would easily be able to tell the difference between those two guys. The song made Desiigner a very popular artist and labels wanted him bad. So Kanye spared no time in making sure that he was signed to his own label, Good Music, and making sure he had the opportunities to make him a superstar. He was featured on the song Champions with Kanye and other huge artists at the time. Even though he had the smallest feature that was literally only ad-libs, it was still a pretty big step up. He was even featured on the XXL cover and his freestyle Timmy Turner went pretty viral. In fact, it went super viral to the point where it became its own song. And while you could by that default, this does not make him technically a one-hit wonder, none of his other songs even remotely equated to the success that Panda had, so technically I believe he is a one-hit wonder. In the span of 1 year, he had one song that went 5 times platinum, a secure record deal, and was on the cover of the most popular magazine in hip-hop. However, when his debut project dropped, it was a different story. He dropped his debut mixtape on June 26 of 2016, and it was an absolute shit show. Both fans and critics were severely disappointed at just how unorganized and how bad it was. Many of the songs were lackluster, and some of the songs just straight up were not complete. Like, some tracks were just 30 seconds or like around a minute long. They just didn't sound finished. And the songs that were fully completed just sounded very stale and uninspired. And you could argue it's because people expected another Panda, but in all honesty, Desiigner wasn't really trying on this project. And even if he did make more songs like Panda, that would not have helped the success of this project. It sold 13k units in its first week, and most of those were just from streams. Now keep in mind, this was during the switch from iTunes to streaming, so most of your sales coming from streams was not seen as a good thing, it was seen as bad. Whereas now, that's just simply what's expected. I remember when this project dropped and I was just so disappointed because we all thought this was going to be a masterpiece. Like, there's a few good songs on here, but overall just very disappointing. This was essentially the start of the end because from here, it just went completely downhill. The failure of this project made him not get taken seriously by the label, and this severely halted his career. He would release his second album, LOD, Life of Desiigner, which is the second and last album under the Good Music record label, but it basically ended after that. After this, Desiigner was completely unheard of. He dropped songs from time to time, but rarely made a splash. He didn't drop an album or anything, he just basically laid low. And while maybe this could have been another case of a musician fucked by the music industry, that's not exactly what really happened here. Because in April of 2023, Desiigner made headlines after he was caught pleasuring himself on a plane. But first, a word from our sponsor, ZocDoc. A couple weeks ago, I had quite the health scare when I looked in the toilet and realized that something was off. I did what any normal person would do and Googled my symptoms, which only made my anxiety much worse. I realized that I needed to talk to someone. Instead of just worrying the night away and wondering how I'm gonna write my will, I should have just scheduled an appointment with a doctor. But finding a doctor isn't always simple. You can spend hours calling different offices, sit on hold forever, and then find out that they're booked for months. The whole process feels like an exhausting hassle. Luckily, today's sponsor, ZocDoc, makes things so much easier. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors. You can choose the one that's right for your needs and instantly click to book an appointment. From mental health to dentistry to eye care to skincare, they got it all. ZocDoc makes it easy to book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers. Whether you're trying to find one last minute or trying to find out what that weird activity in the bathroom is,
doctors. Each doctor has a detailed profile so you can really find out what works for you. When you found a doctor that you like, you can see what appointments they have available, choose a time that works for you, and instantly book it. Plus, ZocDoc helps get you appointments fast, typically within just 24 hours to 72 hours of booking, or even sometimes on the same day. No need to call a doctor's office or wait on hold. ZocDoc lets you do everything online. Stop waiting, stop guessing, and start getting the care that you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/itsblanco to book a top-rated doctor today. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you, ZocDoc.
The story goes, he was in first class and then he whipped it out in front of flight attendants and started, you know what. Apparently he also, exposed himself to other passengers on the plane around 3 times. When the police asked him why he did this, he said, and I quote, didn't really get much cootie. And this was in his trip in Japan. And so when he got on the plane, I guess, his impulses got the better of him. Apparently he wasn't on drugs or alcohol or anything, which, I don't know if that makes the situation better or worse. Like, the fact that he did this just completely sober is pretty crazy to think about. He did address this and claim that he was going to get the mental health that he very, very obviously needed. I am ashamed of my actions that happened on that plane. I landed back to the States and am admitting myself into a facility to help me. I will be canceling all of my shows and any obligations until further notice. And in terms of punishment, he got off pretty easy. This is the type of thing that could easily land you on the sex offenders list, but that's just not what happened here. All he got was a fine and was possibly facing up to 90 days in jail, which for a crime like this is really nothing. From what I've seen, I don't even know if he actually got sentenced to this, but even if he did, like I said, that's a slap on the wrist. Not that I know from experience or anything, just from what I know about the law. This seemed to be a very obvious slow buildup from all the mental issues and the stress of everything, and it seemed like it just came out in the worst way possible. No pun intended. After all, he did experience one of the biggest rises and falls that a 19-year-old could experience. He wasn't even old enough to drink a beer when he got signed. And he wasn't alone because YB and Nahmir was also in the same boat. In 2017, YB and Nahmir became a literal overnight success with the song Rubbin' Off the Paint. Nahmir literally recorded this song in his bathroom on a blue snowball microphone with a sock to act as a pop filter. He literally recorded the music video for this song in one take because he had school the very next day. It was posted to the World Star YouTube account, and after that, it just became complete history. YBN became the hottest rapper to come out of Alabama, even though there aren't really any rappers coming out of Alabama. Like, seriously, when's the last time you heard about a rapper coming from that state? The song literally made him rise so fast he had to switch to online school because he was just getting too poppin'. And if you remember this song, it was a hypnotic anthem. The beat was fire, the flow was amazing, it was just a really, really great song. And Nahmir did have some continued success like this with Bounce Like That and his feature on 1942, but that was pretty much it. And again, you could argue this technically didn't mean he was a one-hit wonder, but those songs really only gained success because of Rubbin' Off the Paint's success. From here, YBN did capitalize on the success by going on tour and starting a whole entire YBN collective with Almighty J and Cordae. And yeah, he was doing the right moves, but he still made one critical error, not dropping an album. You see, the real way to actually last as a musician is to actually drop a whole body of work. This actually makes you last in the long run. And yeah, the reason why Designer fell off was because of his album, but at least he dropped something. Because if he didn't drop an album, he would have fell off a lot quicker. Nahmir simply just did not drop an album. The closest he ever did was a compilation album with the YBN crew, but this isn't really that much of an album. It wasn't until 4 years later after he blew up that he dropped the album Visionland, but this album got famous in possibly the worst way possible. To say it was disappointing was an understatement. The whole album was a mess, and the only song that got popular was Soul Train, and it literally only got popular because of just how bad it was. I can't play because of copyright, but it was like essentially the most cliche mall music H&M pop friendly shit ever. It was just embarrassing to hear. Like, somehow he heard this song and said, yeah, this is a great thing to put on my album. The album did so badly that it didn't even chart. But during this time, Nahmir was going down a path of self-destruction. In reality, he was suffering from a horrible alcohol addiction that lasted from 2019 all the way to 2023. Alright, y'all, I feel like it's best for me to just get this out of my system. For 3 years, I've been struggling with an alcoholic addiction. I've changed so much due to it, and not in the right ways. I've pushed so many of my loved ones away and the people I care about because of it. I've constantly tried to slow down / stop myself from drinking, but it's not easy at all. This year, I want a new challenge, and the challenge is for me to get clean. I never knew addiction was this hard. Beforehand, it was easy for me to block it out, but now it's taking a toll. It's just been a lot going on in my life behind closed doors I leave off the internet. The only thing I want to do now in my life is get help, therapy, or even rehab, to feel like myself again and get my family back. I'm sorry, y'all. I slipped. And this is not something to shame. Alcohol is a very, very serious thing that unfortunately kills a lot of people's lives. A person young who got super famous, super fast and was around the wrong people was basically bound to get into a bad habit like this. But what isn't easy to be sympathetic for is scamming, which is what he was caught doing. Screenshots emerged of another rapper asking Namir for a feature and him paying $200 for it. Namir agreed, but when the money was sent, he went ghost. This is one of the only reported times this happened, but if you're really that desperate to where you need to scam people out of $200, you need to get your shit together. YBN Almighty J would later reveal that the whole reason why the YBN crew fell down was because when Namir moved to LA, he actually joined a gang. But Namir himself defended this. Whatever was the cause, it definitely made his career go downhill. But if we are going to talk about addiction, then we need to talk about Lil Xan. Lil Xan easily had the quickest switch up from the public view that I have ever seen. He went from being a high school dropout selling drugs on the side to eventually having his big break with the song Betrayed. It was one of the biggest songs to come from the emerging SoundCloud rap scene and really perfected the sound that was going viral at that time. And Lil Xan as a person fit the perfect image of all the rappers that were going viral too. He had these crazy face tats, he had a wild name, and he was super rebellious and cocky. It was what everyone was eating up at the time. At one point, the rap song was the most popular viewed video on the Lyrical Lemonade channel with over 200 million views. But this was the most buzz he got because after this, he would only experience the most horrendous downfall ever. His debut album was a complete failure, only selling 28,000 copies in its first week and everyone trashing it. The album to this day is considered a joke by hip-hop fans as one of the worst debut albums of all time. This essentially made Lil Xan one of those rappers that people loved to hate. He was starting to now become famous for all of the wrong reasons. He tried to later claim that he had no control over the composition of his album, that he couldn't even pick the order of the songs. However, many sources close to Lil Xan, including Adam22, revealed that the main reason why this album flopped was because Lil Xan was barely putting in any work. Whether it was the label's fault or Xan's fault, the fact that Xan was not able to take any accountability whatsoever did not help him get any respect. The problem was he had this big song, was now famous, and decided to coast instead of actually continuing to grind when the iron was hot. He would start to become more of a personality than a musician, but like in the worst way possible. And he got caught up in lots and lots of drama. In June of 2018, he dated musician Noah Cyrus, but they only broke up after 3 months. Now, even though it was a very short relationship, it was extremely public, and the two of them constantly were going at each other on social media, accusing each other of cheating. At one point, Xan even tried to claim that the only reason why they were together was because their record label forced them to fake a relationship to promote their song together. He then dated the popular influencer Tana Mojo, but this also was extremely on and off. He even collaborated with her other ex-boyfriend to make a diss song towards her. Like, you can't make this shit up. Now, even though his name was Lil Xan, he was very outspoken about how he was against drugs. At one point, he was even trying to change his name to Diego so that he wouldn't encourage any of that type of shit, which major props. But he had a different addiction that made him a much bigger joke. On September 26, he claimed that he went to the hospital because he ate too many hot Cheetos. He posted a pic of himself in an ambulance with the caption, "I was in the hospital not due to any drugs, but I guess I ate too many hot Cheetos." Apparently, you can go to the hospital for that. This made him an even bigger name in the way that people laughed at him and not with him. Because again, how the fuck do you overdose on hot Cheetos? The thing is, Xan could have just ridden off this wave and lived off the big amount of money that he made in this time, but that's not what happened. After his initial blow up, he spent his money like there was no tomorrow. He spent thousands on designer clothes that he basically would just leave on the floor. He'd buy a fancy G-Wagon that was easily worth over $100,000 and then just trash it live on Instagram for the sake of flexing. But it didn't stop there. Lil Xan would even ball out on bigger purchases like buying multiple apartments in LA, and if you guys know anything about LA, the real estate is not known for being cheap. Not working on the thing that makes you money combined with spending too much money is a horrible combination for anybody. By this time, Lil Xan's career was at an all-time low. So, what do? Well, you start blaming your manager for quote-unquote providing you drugs. It's the definition of going out sad. To make things worse, this clearly got to his mental because in quarantine, he would have anxiety attacks that were so bad his mom had to call 911. Now, the situation has gone better in recent years as Lil Xan has appeared much more humble and mature in recent interviews and has claimed he has gone completely sober. It seemed he has learned from his mistakes, but the success that he once had isn't coming back. But hey, that's not the worst way to go out. It's a hell of a lot better than being accused of murder, which is what happened to Ugly God. Now, just like Lil Xan, Ugly God was one of the other rappers that also came out of the emerging SoundCloud era. The first song of his that blew up was the song Beat My Meat, which went pretty viral after a bunch of YouTubers recorded a dance for it. Eventually, it got over 33 million plays on SoundCloud. This was after he posted the song for the third time because his basketball coach believed that that if he posted that song, it would really get in the way of any basketball colleges giving him a scholarship. But the real song that made him big was the track Water. This song was a hit on SoundCloud, which helped him get taken seriously by record labels who would drop the song officially on streaming services. Eventually, it would land on the Billboard Hot 100 for 4 weeks and went double platinum. Now, Ugly God stood out from all of the other SoundCloud rappers because he didn't really take himself too seriously. He didn't have face tats, he didn't pretend to be a gangster or anything. He was goofing around putting lizards on his nose and wearing Pikachu onesies. And usually this is the type of thing that would limit your career because it makes your fans see you more as a joke rather than a musician, but with him, it actually helped him be more relatable. And his music was solid enough to where it actually developed real fans, and it wasn't just meme music. And while Ugly God did develop a solid fan base, this was where it peaked. In 2017, he tried to continue the success by dropping a diss song to himself called Fuck Ugly God, but this song only really went so popular. He dropped his debut project, The Booty Tape, which only sold 12,000 copies its first week, because at this point, the meme stuff was starting to take over the actual quality of the music. He was featured on Lil Yachty's song Boom, which was off Lil Bo 2, but this song wasn't really a hit either. Ugly God would drop his second and last project, Bumps and Bruises, in 2019, but this one performed even less than The Booty Tape, even though it was a much more serious project. And songs of Ugly God didn't have the opportunity to escape the one-hit wonder status, but after this, he just stopped dropping music. Out of nowhere, he just went completely ghost both in music and on social media. At one point in 2022, his YouTube was hacked and all of his music videos were deleted. There was a recent picture that surfaced of him being much skinnier, which did lead to people believing that he may have developed a drug addiction, but this was denied. There was also a rumor that he worked at Walmart after a picture surfaced of a guy who looked just like him wearing a Walmart employee outfit, but he also denied this too. But all this will be the last of his worries because on August 7th, 2023, Ugly God was accused of murdering his best friend's dad. According to a witness, Ugly God's mom and the best friend's mom got into a pretty intense argument, which eventually led to Ugly God coming to the house the next day and shooting the dad. All of this was alleged at the time, but when it was announced, it was pretty big news. That witness was actually a relative of the dad, and she claimed that Ugly God was trying to claim that he was in self-defense. His uncle also was a judge, and she further accused the fact that Ugly God was trying to use this connection to try and get the charges dropped. And there was a case report and everything that proved that this was a real accusation. This was very, very serious. A week and a half later, Ugly God would address it and deny everything. A lot can happen in a year. Hashtag don't believe the hype. He wrote while posting in all 4 different pictures while holding stacks of cash. I'm not sure what posting pictures of you holding money has to do with proving that you didn't kill anybody, but cool. And I guess he was right because in January of 2024, he was released from custody. Now, not much is known publicly about the details of this case. Maybe Ugly God was defending himself. Maybe he actually did commit murder and got away with it. I mean, who knows? But it does not compare to the rapper who actually did get charged with murder, Silento. Now, I have talked about this guy before, but it is easily the biggest case of one-hit wonders who went off the deep end. So I have to include it. If you're not familiar with Silento, well, you're definitely familiar with his song Whip and Nene, which was huge in 2015 and is one of the most viewed songs of all time on YouTube. The song's signature dance that made it really, really fun to engage with made it the modern hip-hop version of the Cha-Cha Slide. The song was made by the 17-year-old rapper Silento at the time, and this did take him off, but only for a little bit. The song was super popular, but his career was pretty stagnant after this. I mean, after all, the song was essentially a gimmick song. The song was played at bar mitzvahs and middle school dances. It wasn't something that you would listen to on your own time on your headphones. Like, no one's playing this in the car. Plus, Silento did not match the modern style of a rapper in any way, or even in the unique artistic way. But he did present himself as very humble and mature. He was just a regular kid. However, this was the most success he ever had. Any project or song he tried to drop after this completely flopped and was ripped to shreds by critics. Anything that Silento dropped did not have any remote success whatsoever. Within a year, he basically just fell off the face of the earth. He even tried to drop Whip and Nene Part 2, but considering that you have not heard about that, I think it speaks for itself. The world didn't hear from Silento for years until he appeared on the talk show The Doctors. This was where he opened up about his childhood trauma. As a child, he was found having multiple drugs in his system, including cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. Grew up in a pretty rough part in Atlanta and witnessed multiple family members constantly trying to kill each other and screaming through the walls. At age 14, he was constantly getting into trouble and was even thrown in juvie. For him, music was an outlet and gave him something productive to focus on, which helped him stay out of trouble. Making it big did help help him get out of his situation, but also completely deteriorated his mental health because of all the pressure. And he never really addressed the underlying issues that he was suffering from. And while he did make the right decision by coming forward about his problems, he didn't really make the full commitment to actually getting them solved. After his appearance on The Doctors, he was supposed to continue with therapy sessions and go on other mental health TV shows, but this never really happened. The year after, in 2020, he attempted to kill himself because he was bottling everything up. However, he still refused to get treatment, and after this was where his streak of crime started. In August of 2020, he was arrested for inflicting injury on a cohabitant. Not much info was released on this, but he was released from prison literally right after, which was a huge mistake because literally the day after this, he bursted into a random home wielding an axe looking for his ex-girlfriend, but she wasn't there because his ex-girlfriend didn't live there. It was literally just a random family's house. And obviously they freaked out when they saw a random pissed off dude holding an axe trying to murder them. He swung at two of the people in the house before his friend eventually told him that they were at the wrong place and they left. Eventually the police found and arrested him, and this was a pretty serious crime. Somehow he was released after this, I don't know how though. And a month later he was arrested again after going 143 miles per hour, and the video surfaced of this making him look like a total dick. But in 2021, Silento went too far. On January 21st at 3:30 a.m., a man named Frederick Roots was found bleeding profusely. Eventually he was found by the police, but when they got to him, it was too late and he was dead. That man was Silento's cousin. Earlier, Silento pulled up in his white BMW and shot him both in the face and the leg. Police were able to quickly find it was him because they saw the footage from all of the Ring doorbells from the neighbors, and it didn't really take that police to figure out the details. The news of this was so shocking because no one would think that the guy who sang Whip and Nene would literally kill his cousin. To this day, police have no idea why he did it. His PR manager tried to convince the public that he was completely innocent, but it was his PR manager, so of course she did that. His own grandparents told the judge to deny his bail for any amount of money, and the fact that they of all people would say that shows just how fucked up the guy was. He was eventually sentenced to 30 years in murder, and the sad thing is, it didn't need to happen this way. If he just got the help he needed for all of the severe mental issues he was suffering from, this definitely would not have happened. It's another sad story of a kid who got way too famous, way too quick, who came from a bad area and never addressed the serious underlying issues that he was suffering from. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's anything you take from this video, don't kill people, guys. That's it's not very good. Till next time, shalom.